Have you ever found yourself answering emails long after your workday should have ended, only to feel even more exhausted and disconnected from the people that you care about? What if I told you that the key to finding peace and balance isn't about doing more, but trusting God with your time and learning to truly rest? An effective work life barrier helps you to leave the stresses of work behind you at the end of the day so you can relax and recharge while you're at home. Recently, I've had a number of conversations in regards to work life boundaries. How do you strengthen the boundary? In some of the cases, the women I spoke to, they figured out how to log off and end their day at a certain time. But thoughts of work, emails, lingering to dos, it just draws them back into work mode and away from family and personal time later in the evening. So that's what we're going to get into today. So we're going to go beyond that end of day routine, which I talked about in a prior live. Type prior in the comments and I'll send you the link if you're interested in this episode, we're going to go through and help you capture and challenge your triggers to re-engage with work after you get home so you can change your behaviors to give you more work-life balance. Hi, in case if we haven't met before, I'm Sharon McCall with Whispering Fields Wellness. I'm the admin for the Facebook group, Grace Over Grind. And so some of you are catching us in that Facebook group and some of you are catching me on other platforms. After having accomplished my goal to be a vice president in a major health and wellness company, I'm now coaching people like you to recover from stress and overwork. I have decades of experience mentoring other leaders to get through tough spots at work. So I've got plenty of knowledge to share, as well as the ones from my own experiences of climbing the ladder and researching how to recover from chronic stress and workaholism. So with the support of others and God's grace, I know you can reduce stress and improve work-life harmony as well. So right now I'm in process of learning Restream since this is the first time I'm hitting 3 platforms all at once. So I'm currently only answering live comments in Facebook. If you're on the other platforms, I will respond to your comments. So if you're catching this live or in the replay, I will get back to you, I promise. I'm still learning, so I'm going to start with this. Any supporting links I send out will point you to the Facebook group and to my website, so you might want to consider joining there if you find any of this helpful. You'll have access to everything into the future. So my goal today is to help you to develop a stronger barrier between your work and your personal time, just through small intentional habits that honor both your professional commitments and personal well-being. Work-life balance choices are different for each of us. We've all got different priorities in lives. So today what we're going to do is get into how can you capture your triggers, challenge them, and identify how you want to change the thoughts, the behaviors, the emotions, or the conditions that are enabling work to encroach into your personal time. So when you know what weakens your work-life barrier, you can identify what is needed to fill those holes and to prevent work issues from spilling into your private life. So if you take a look at this from a faith-based perspective, so I'm Christian and typically you'll come back to the Bible for my points of reference. We are all designed for balance and rest. The Bible speaks of the importance of rest and creation and how God set boundaries, even for his work. He rested. We saw plenty of stories where Jesus, he rested with himself, by himself. He rested with his disciples, is on top of his very busy schedule to teach and get the word out and to make sure that he built the believers while he was in this world. Basically, what they're coming down to is saying is that you can't do all that you're called to do if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's the belief that I have from reading what I see in the gospel. So we're going to go through today and identify where the holes are in your work-life barrier so that you can rest. Just like Jesus had the time by himself and with his disciples, we want to make sure that you've got time for yourself and your family so you can be working at your top form. So this all starts with recognizing the current state and focusing on identifying the areas where work intrudes on your personal time and what's going on at home that's enabling work to intrude. So I'm going to ask you to just to get a scratch piece of paper just so you can jot some notes. Um, so that as I go through a couple of different questions, you can identify what's going on to trigger you to want to check your work emails or to respond to work or just work in the evening or just getting lost in the thoughts of it. So what I want you to do is to find on your sheet of paper and just kind of create two columns. We're going to talk about emotions, what you feel, the behaviors, the things you do, the beliefs about what you think is true, and the conditions or circumstances that are leading work to come up to the surface. So the first column is about work. So what specifically is going on at work or is work related that's getting you to get want to re-engage with work? So for example, are there the pings of notifications where someone's counting on you, where there's a backlog that's overwhelming, time zone differences? So what are those different things that you feel? And then in this other column, you want to end up doing the same thing, but what are the things that are happening at home? So that just pick one situation. So just you don't need to make this big or overwhelming because we're just going to run through this really quick today. Just think of the last time that you were doing something work related when you really wanted to be spending time with family. So just go through and get those categories. So each of these represents a spot where there's a hole or a thin spot in your work-life barrier. So maybe as you went through, you've got a list of things that kind of look something like this. I grabbed a whole bunch of common scenarios that I hear people talk about. Is they share what's the challenges that they face with their work life barrier. So I'll talk through a couple of these just because I know sometimes my handwriting's atrocious. So from feelings, maybe you about work, you feel guilty because you've got such a long workload list of things to do. You don't want to disappoint people. You've got a fear of missing out. Maybe at home, you start thinking about work when you're alone, or you start feeling insecure about your finances. And so you dive into work to help take care of that feeling. Doing, maybe at work, you're just saying yes to too many things, or the way you're prioritizing, there's a little bit too much busy work or other things going on. Maybe at home, you're staying up too late, so you're working after hours, so you're super tired, and so then you're not as effective or making as clear decisions on what your top priorities are the next day. Getting into beliefs, maybe you believe that you're going to fall behind if you don't work at night. Maybe you're such an achiever oriented that you have to finish your to-do list, or something's got to be perfect, or maybe work's the most important thing. Maybe at home, it's the thought that there's just too much going on and you've got to always be busy, you're always available, or your work is your purpose and your duty and how you support your family. Coming down to situations, it could be that you don't have the time during the workday. Others are expecting a lot of you. You get a lot of notifications, time zone differences. The boss works late, so you feel that you have to. Or when you're at home, you get that itchy restlessness that because you just can't sit still and rest. Or everyone in your family is busy, so you just grab the phone and you just start working because everybody's busy. Or you didn't really have a plan for the night. You realize you don't want to be watching TV. It's not something you want to do, even though you're sitting next to your loved one. But that's not what you want to occupy your time with. But you want to be doing something else. So that's kind of what I mean by go through and pick. So your situations are going to be different. This was just a bunch of examples of things that I've heard people talk about, and to get you to start thinking through. So are there any patterns that you see, themes, situations in any of these different categories that kind of come to surface and you're like, let's work on that one? So I'll give an example. So there was a time when I was living in California. The company was headquartered in Michigan and I was supporting Japan and India. So I was on the phone from 4 a.m. till like 9 p.m. I was just getting clobbered by the time difference. And because things literally did happen overnight, I'd have difficulty sleeping and I would wake up with a sense of dread, because there would be whatever happened overnight that I would have to deal with. And it just felt that there was no off time because even the holiday schedules were different. And so I had to start figuring out why I was feeling like this and what I needed to do to being able to get out of it, because I was just totally stretching myself out. So as you look at your patterns, what pattern do you see? And what's kind of driving you potentially to behave like this? So when I went in and did that self-analysis on that in that incident, I'd had a lot of, I have to prove myself and be responsive to prove I'm capable. For some of those markets, particularly with India, it took a lot to get people's respect. So I felt that I had to be putting in so much more into being able to stay on top of things, and just really proving my worth to that group. So that was some of the underlying things that were going on and contributing to that situation. So with that analysis, and I'm hoping you found a couple of things that made sense to you of where there's a hole and what's kind of going on with that hole in your work-life boundary. So anyone want to share what they found? Any comments? If you're catching this on replay, like I said, I'll come and respond. I'd love to hear if you've had any ahas with this so far, how we've shared this exercise today. So I do want to take a quick pause because I don't see any comments. So before we get into solutions, how do you take this analysis, this capturing that you're doing, and then to move it on into the next couple phases? As you think about it, thoughts and beliefs, when you change your thoughts and your beliefs, you can change your behaviors. But you can also change your behaviors because chemically inside your body, you can also end up having changing the way that you think and you believe as a result. So sometimes you want to take the action until you can create the new thought and the belief. And sometimes you want to start with the thought and the belief and then change your action. So there's a lot of different ways as we start getting into these next phases for you to focus on. And this is part of where, as a Christian, I always come back to God because he can help me figure out, do I have the true belief? Do I have true thoughts? In which case, then I want to go and challenge the action. But if I don't have a true belief or thought, this is a great time to get closer to God, get that straightened out, and then the actions will follow. Um, and I'll give a practical example on this. So like there's plenty of times, not so much as in this example that I just shared, where I'd suppress or swallow my emotions in an unhealthy way. So I typically just let emotions flow and just focus on the other factors so that I don't encourage myself to suppress them. So give some thoughts to that in terms of what you're learning from your worksheet as you go through there to what you want to focus on. What is the easiest areas for you to change based upon your experience? There is a whole worksheet set that does go with this, so do let me know if you want the worksheet set. Drop worksheet in the comments and I'll go ahead and get that sent over to you. So now that you've identified where you want to work, so you've captured it and you want to challenge it. So what do you want to do? How are you going to fill the hole in your work-life boundary? This is where, kind of depending on what you come up with, you need to challenge and figure out, is this belief true? Um, is this thought true that's feeding this? Do I want to just change my behavior? Is this something that I need to create a different approach to? So give some thought to that. I'll give you an example of what I did in that example of when I was working across a global set of time zones. So I decided that I just couldn't take it anymore. I was just getting pulled in way too much, just literally because of the global time frames that I was supporting. So I had to sit down with key stakeholders in each of these different areas to make sure that I could be clear on what the expectations were and what was realistic. So I just couldn't end up hitting that 7 a.m. staff meeting that my boss would occasionally have because I would have had like no sleep. And just by the time I got off the call with India and taking care of everything that they needed before their end of day, I would sometimes just be getting in the shower. I wouldn't be able to get on a call, or much less to be in the office, in the California office, trying to call in and meet with everybody else that's there. So I'd had to figure out a different way to handle this. And so as we worked through these issues and over time, we eventually figured out a better coverage so that people could actually get a better balance of self-care. Like, I became the India specialist and somebody else got the Japan stuff. It worked out pretty well because there was one lady that also had India and Japan, and we just kind of swapped some stuff, and the bosses were okay with that, to do that. And at the time, honestly, I was so tired and exhausted. I couldn't do anything more than figure out a practical answer to that, because I was just too tired to do anything like journaling or self-development or figuring out why I got myself in the situation to start off with. Eventually, I did start tackling the not capable or not enough, and what I needed to do to be respected by the folks in India. But I literally couldn't do it when I was only getting 5 hours or less of sleep a night. So that's kind of the process that you want to do. Is there a one-time thing that you can do to solve this? Maybe it's it's changing a couple of different things and building in some tiny habits framework so that you can put it into your routine to help you. So maybe it's okay for you to check work for 15 minutes in the evening and you want to set a timer. Maybe you want to end up changing your routine so there's less temptation to check work. Could you leave your devices in the trunk of the car so that you have them if you need them? Or put them on the charger in a different room? Is there something other than watching TV maybe that would help distract you more so that you're not just grabbing the phone out of habit? So go through and think about what might be those right things to do just from changing your habits and the way that you do it. If you want to tackle the emotions and the thoughts or the beliefs, sorry, not the emotions, the thoughts or the beliefs, there is an actual capture challenge change exercise that I have that I can share with you. So maybe what you've got going on is that I don't deserve to rest. I can't rest. Other stuff is more important. The I'm too busy. I have to always be available. So any of that stuff, I can get you a separate worksheet from a different video I've made for you to work through that exercise. Bottom line with this is, particularly on these when you're challenging your beliefs and your thoughts, you just really need to trust God and keep in touch with Him in regards to what's best for your time. And particularly when it's hard, go to Him so you can truly rest and know what is that right next step. Is the scripture says in Matthew, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Your worth is not tied into your work, and rest is a form of obedience to God's design. So if you want some more information on how to do the capture challenge change that goes with the thoughts and the beliefs, let me know. Type CCC in the chat and I'll share that with you. Here's maybe one more action to try that also helps fill some of those feelings into as well. Maybe you want to call or email a friend when you're lonely instead of grabbing the work phone to fill the void. That could be something to take a look at as well. So what's one small habit that you could build to fill the hole in your work-life boundary? I'd love to see it if you're willing to drop it in the comments. What's something that's so easy to do and powerful enough to create a shift in your life, to fill that hole in your work-life boundary so that you've got something more tempting to do, or you've changed things enough that it's more difficult to go and work? So give some thoughts to what could be that one small habit. What's that small change that you could do? I don't see anything in the comments. Like I said, I'll follow up on anything that comes after the live. Another thing to do is, as you're layering things, for me, I always find it's so much more powerful if I can include God in my process and in my habits. So don't forget, you can layer in a faith-based component to that to help reduce stress, putting in a little bit of prayer, a scripture or affirmation. Layering your habits with spiritual practices is a proven way to help you to reduce stress as well as to support the behavior change. I do have a guide on how to go through and to design and implement tiny habits. So if you need it, just type guide in the comments and I'll send you the link. So, with the idea that you've come up with, how about trying that as a habit for the next 7 days? Could I challenge you to do that? Are you willing to make a commitment to yourself to see how this approach can impact you? I'd love to hear in what ways this exercise changed how you think about work life balance and that boundary between work and and your personal life. So, as we get to the end of this, just remember as you go through, there is no such thing as work life balance. What works today may not work tomorrow, so you need to adapt. And you just need the tools to know that you can confidently make the changes that best support you. And as you're going through this, it's lovely to think that you're going to magically never touch your work phone again after dinner. But that's hard. That is really hard. So tiny habits, they can add up just by taking that consistent 1% improvement action every day and fill that hole that and to make sure that you have a strong barrier between work and your personal time. And remember, there's benefits to this too. The more you rest, the more you're able to take care of yourself and to energize and relax, the more productive you're going to be the next day. Because the more sleep that you get, the more effective that you are. And also, this is then about honoring God's design for rest and balance. So I thank you for joining today and listening in. And I'd just like to close in prayer. So, Lord, for any unstated prayers, you know the hearts and what's weighing heavy on the listeners today. Please help my friends here release the heavy burdens they carry in their work and daily lives. Please give them the strength to set down their stress, fears, and worries. Help us honor the time you've given us for rest and family, and give us strength to set boundaries in our work so that we may live in alignment with your will for our lives. Lead us to be healthy in body, renewed in mind, and strong in spirit. May we know your will and your love. In Jesus' name, amen. So for next time, I'm going to continue on this topic of feeling imbalanced in work life. I'm going to focus more on energy management because sometimes you're just so tired by the end of the day and you just crash out and you think it's a work life issue, but it's an energy management issue. So we're going to talk about this more next week so that you can manage your energy differently so you have enough to enjoy your personal life at home. So I pray this topic and guidance have helped you to get ideas on relieving stress and improving work-life balance. If there's anything you want to cover in an upcoming live, just put it in the comments or come join the Facebook group. That's called Grace Over Grind, Recover from Stress for Christian Professionals. It's also a great place that if you want a little bit more privacy to share experiences and comments that you just may not feel as freely or able to easily express in a more public forum, particularly one like LinkedIn where everything's out there for your professional profile. So if you want, come join us. The link is in the description if you're on one of these other platforms. Until next time, have a blessed day.